Chapter 08, Global Ethics, Cultural Translation, and Ethical Leadership in a Fragmented World Abstract. This chapter addresses one of the central challenges of contemporary ethical leadership: how to uphold non-negotiable protections for human dignity while translating ethical principles across diverse cultural, legal, technological, and spiritual contexts. Building on quiet excellence as a trauma-aware, restraint-based ethical framework, the chapter distinguishes ethical safeguards from cultural expressions, enabling global applicability without ethical dilution or cultural imperialism. Integrating international law, global justice theory, trauma-informed governance, and ethical AI principles, the chapter proposes a scalable model for ethical translation capable of guiding leadership, policy, and technology deployment in a fragmented world. Quiet excellence is positioned as a portable ethical spine, stable at its core, adaptive in its expression, and resistant to both relativism and domination. 8.1, the global ethical crisis, fragmentation without guardrails. The contemporary global landscape is marked by ethical fragmentation across nations, institutions, and technologies. Globalization has intensified interdependence without establishing sufficient moral guardrails, resulting in uneven protections, power asymmetries, and normalized harm. Ethical frameworks often fracture under geopolitical pressure, economic inequality, or cultural misunderstanding. This chapter asserts that ethical leadership in such conditions requires not louder moral claims, but clearer ethical architecture capable of stabilizing dignity across difference. 8.2, operational definition of quiet excellence, global context. For global application, quiet excellence is defined operationally as the disciplined capacity of individuals and institutions to regulate power, prevent harm, and uphold dignity through lawful restraint rather than coercive control. It prioritizes nervous system safety, ethical accountability, and transparency over charisma, persuasion, or ideological conformity. This definition allows quiet excellence to function as an evaluative and design principle across cultures, technologies, and governance systems. 8.3, ethical safeguards versus cultural expressions. A central contribution of this chapter is the distinction between ethical safeguards and cultural expressions. Ethical safeguards, nonviolence, consent, dignity, due process, accountability, are non-negotiable. Cultural expressions, the rituals, languages, leadership styles, and social norms through which ethics are enacted, are variable and context-dependent. Conflating these categories has historically produced either imperial universalism or ethical relativism. Quiet excellence avoids both by preserving firm ethical boundaries while permitting diverse cultural enactments. 8.4, comparative ethical translation across regions. Ethical translation requires sensitivity to historical, social, and institutional context. For example, governance models emphasizing individual autonomy may require adaptation in collectivist cultures while still maintaining protections against coercion and abuse. Comparative analysis across East Asian, African, and Western contexts demonstrates that while leadership aesthetics vary, the ethical failures that enable harm, unchecked authority, silence without accountability, lack of legal recourse are structurally similar. Ethical universality, therefore, lies in safeguards, not style. 8.5, case analysis. Global institutional failures. Global ethical failures illustrate the cost of poor ethical translation. United Nations peacekeeping missions have at times exacerbated trauma due to inadequate accountability mechanisms. COVID-era vaccine inequities revealed how global supply chains privilege economic power over human vulnerability. These cases underscore that ethical intent without enforceable safeguards produces harm at scale. Quiet excellence reframes such failures as design breakdowns rather than moral anomalies. 8.6, trauma-informed global policy. Trauma-informed governance recognizes that populations exposed to conflict, exploitation, or institutional betrayal respond differently to authority. Policies that ignore collective trauma often reproduce fear, resistance, or disengagement. Integrating trauma science into global leadership design improves compliance, trust, and long-term stability. Ethical leadership, in this view, must regulate not only resources and rules, but also psychological safety at scale. 8.7, digital colonialism and power asymmetry. Digital colonialism represents a modern form of imperialism, where data extraction, platform governance, and technological dependency reproduce historical patterns of domination. Global AI systems frequently embed Western assumptions while externalizing harm to less protected regions. Ethical AI governance must therefore address not only bias and transparency, but also ownership, participation, and sovereignty. Quiet excellence positions ethical restraint as the antidote to technological overreach. 8.8 Ethical AI across borders. AI deployed across borders magnifies ethical risk. This section operationalizes ethical AI safeguards for global use. Explainability, contestability, human accountability, and legal oversight. No AI system should override local legal protections or cultural consent norms. Ethical AI governance must remain subordinate to human rights law and violence prevention principles, ensuring technology amplifies dignity rather than efficiency alone. 8.9 Spiritual pluralism and moral reasoning. Spiritual traditions shape moral reasoning for billions of people worldwide. Ethical leadership cannot ignore their influence, yet must avoid essentializing or privileging any tradition. Quiet excellence accommodates spiritual pluralism by respecting ethical insights, such as compassion, restraint, and humility, while maintaining secular accountability and legal boundaries. This allows spiritual wisdom to inform leadership without granting moral immunity. 8.10 The Ethical Translation Framework, Conceptual Model. The ethical translation framework consists of 3 interacting layers. 1 Core safeguards, nonviolence, dignity, consent, accountability. 2 Contextual adaptation, cultural norms, institutional histories, social structures. 3 Governance mechanisms, law, oversight, review, and repair. Ethical failure occurs when any layer is bypassed or collapsed into another. This framework provides a practical tool for policymakers, educators, and global leaders. 8.11 Global Education and Ethical Literacy. Sustainable ethical leadership requires education systems that cultivate ethical literacy alongside technical competence. Doctoral education, professional training, and public learning must integrate ethics as lived practice rather than abstract doctrine. Quiet excellence offers a pedagogical approach emphasizing restraint, reflection, and responsibility. 8.12 Institutions as translators of ethics. Institutions serve as translators between ethical ideals and lived reality. When institutions lack ethical clarity, individuals are forced to navigate harm alone. This chapter argues that institutional design, not individual heroism, is the decisive factor in global ethical outcomes. Institutions must therefore be evaluated by their capacity to prevent harm and repair trust. 8.13 Chapter Synthesis, Toward Global Human Flourishing. Chapter 08 positions quiet excellence as a globally viable ethical framework capable of navigating plurality without fragmentation. By separating safeguards from expressions, integrating trauma awareness, confronting digital colonialism, and anchoring AI governance in law, the chapter affirms that human flourishing is achievable across cultures when ethics are designed with restraint, humility, and accountability. Global peace, in this view, is not imposed. It emerges from systems that protect dignity quietly, consistently, and without domination.